He thought he was about to begin the perfect future, but the past was already walking toward him across the sand. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below, and if you believe that some secrets never stay buried forever, make sure to like and subscribe. Now, back to Ethan Romano. The California sun hung low over Malibu Beach, painting the ocean in shades of gold and silver as waves rolled gently onto the shore. Families laughed in the distance. Children chased seagulls across the sand. The salty breeze carried the scent of the Pacific through the warm afternoon air. It should have been a perfect day. For Ethan Romano, it was supposed to be the beginning of a new chapter. Standing beside him was Sophia Harrington, elegant in a flowing white sundress that fluttered softly in the wind. Her smile was radiant as she gazed out at the ocean, completely unaware of what was about to happen. Ethan had spent weeks planning this moment. The reservation at the private beachfront resort, the dinner waiting after sunset, the ring hidden safely inside his jacket pocket. Everything had been arranged with the precision that had helped him build one of the most powerful business empires on the West Coast. At 38 years old, Ethan was a man accustomed to control. Every meeting, every investment, every decision. His world moved according to plans carefully laid out months in advance. But life has a way of ignoring even the most powerful plans. Sophia turned toward him and smiled. "It's beautiful here," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, it is." Yet his attention drifted beyond her shoulder toward the crowded shoreline. Something had caught his eye. At first it seemed insignificant. Just another family enjoying the beach. A woman walking near the water with 2 young children. But then his body went completely still. His heartbeat slowed. The sounds around him faded. The laughter, the waves, the conversations. Everything seemed to disappear. Because the woman was Amara Brooks. 8 years. 8 long years had passed since he had last seen her face. Yet he recognized her instantly. The same graceful posture. The same dark curls. Moving in the ocean breeze. The same calm dignity that had once made him believe he could leave everything behind and build a different life. Ethan felt the color drain from his face. Sophia noticed immediately. "Ethan," she asked, "are you okay?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because standing beside Amara were 2 children. A boy and a girl. Around 7 years old. Twins. They were laughing as they chased each other through the wet sand near the shoreline. Then something happened that made Ethan's chest tighten. The little boy pointed toward him. "Mom," he called. His voice carried clearly through the breeze. "Isn't that the man from the photo?" Ethan froze. Every muscle in his body locked in place. The girl immediately turned and looked toward him too. Curious. Innocent. Unaware that a single sentence had just shattered an entire afternoon. Amara stopped walking. For a brief moment, her eyes met Ethan's across the crowded beach. Time seemed to collapse. 8 years disappeared. Neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. The ocean continued rolling onto the shore as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Because in that moment, Ethan Romano realized that the life he thought he had left behind might not be behind him at all. For several seconds, nobody moved. The ocean breeze continued sweeping across the beach, lifting strands of Amara's dark hair as the twins stood beside her. Ethan felt as though the ground beneath him had disappeared. The little boy's words echoed in his mind. The man from the photo. Not a stranger. Not someone they had seen online. A photo. A photograph important enough for a 7-year-old child to recognize from a distance. Sophia followed his gaze toward the shoreline. "Do you know them?" she asked quietly. Ethan swallowed. His throat felt dry. "I used to." It was the only answer he could manage. Across the sand, Amara's expression remained calm, but her eyes told a different story. Shock. Uncertainty. Maybe even fear. Then, gently placing a hand on each child's shoulder, she guided them farther down the beach without saying a word. Ethan watched until they disappeared into the crowd. Only then did he realize he had stopped breathing normally. 8 years earlier, things had looked very different. Back then, Ethan Romano was not the man people knew today. He did not live in luxury. He did not command boardrooms or oversee billion-dollar deals. He was ambitious, certainly, but still building his future one long day at a time. And during those years, the best part of every day had been Amara Brooks. He still remembered the first time he saw her. A small bookstore in downtown Los Angeles. Rain tapping softly against the windows. She had been standing near a shelf of history books, completely absorbed in a novel while the world moved around her. Most people entered a room hoping to be noticed. Amara never needed to try. There was something about her kindness, her quiet confidence, her ability to make everyone around her feel seen. Ethan had been captivated almost immediately. What began as a simple conversation became coffee. Coffee became dinners. Dinners became long walks through the city. Before either of them realized it, they had built a life together out of ordinary moments. They talked about everything: dreams, fears, family, the future. Amara knew parts of Ethan that no one else ever saw. She knew how hard he worked. She knew the pressure he carried. She knew the responsibilities he never spoke about. Most importantly, she believed in him before success arrived. Long before expensive suits and magazine covers, she saw the man he wanted to become. On warm summer evenings, they would sit together overlooking the city lights, sometimes for hours, talking about things that seemed simple back then. A house someday, a family, a future that belonged to both of them. Ethan had even purchased a ring, not an extravagant one, just something meaningful, something he planned to give her after closing the biggest business deal of his young career. He wanted to start their next chapter the right way. But life rarely follows the plans people make in quiet moments. One unexpected phone call changed everything. Opportunities appeared. Responsibilities multiplied. Ethan found himself pulled deeper into a world that demanded every minute of his attention. What he believed would be a temporary distance slowly became something much larger. Looking back now, standing on that beach 8 years later, Ethan realized something painful. He remembered almost every detail about how they fell in love. Yet he still could not fully understand how they lost each other. The weeks that followed were some of the most confusing of Ethan's life. At first, he told himself the distance was temporary. Every missed dinner could be made up later. Every canceled weekend could be replaced by a future vacation. Every unanswered call could be explained when things finally settled down. But things never settled down. The more successful he became, the more demands appeared. New opportunities arrived faster than he could manage them. Meetings stretched late into the night. Flights replaced evenings at home. Promises became postponements. Through it all, Amara remained patient. At least in the beginning. She never complained when he arrived 2 hours late for dinner. She never criticized him for checking emails during conversations. She never asked him to choose between his dreams and their relationship. Instead, she encouraged him. She celebrated every milestone. She believed his sacrifices would eventually create the future they both wanted. But patience has limits, even when love is strong. Ethan began noticing changes. Small things at first. The way Amara smiled less often. The way she stared quietly out apartment windows. The way she sometimes seemed present physically, but somewhere else emotionally. One evening, she asked a question that lingered in his mind for years afterward. Do you ever worry that one day you will become so busy building a life that you forget to actually live it? Ethan had laughed softly at the time. He thought she was simply stressed. He assured her everything would be worth it. He promised that once his latest project was finished, things would slow down. He promised they would take a trip together. He promised they would start planning their future. Looking back now, he realized how many promises had begun with the word soon. Soon became next month. Next month became next year. Then came the morning everything changed. Ethan woke up to find an empty apartment. At first, he thought Amara had gone out for coffee. But hours passed. Then an entire day. Her phone went straight to voicemail. By evening, concern had become panic. The next morning, a letter arrived. He still remembered every word. Amara wrote that she could not keep waiting for a future that never seemed to arrive. She wrote that she loved him, but she no longer recognized the man she had once known. Most painfully, she wrote that perhaps he had already chosen his priorities long ago and simply had not realized it yet. Ethan read the letter dozens of times, then hundreds. For months afterward, he searched for answers. Friends had not heard from her. Former coworkers knew nothing. Even her social media accounts disappeared. It was as though she had stepped out of his life and vanished completely. Eventually, pride became resignation. Resignation became silence. And silence became 8 years. Yet standing on that beach now, watching memories collide with the present, Ethan felt something that had not existed back then. Doubt. Because for the first time, he was no longer certain that the story he had believed for 8 years was the complete truth. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur that Ethan could barely remember. He heard Sophia speaking beside him. He answered questions automatically. He smiled when expected. Yet his mind remained fixed on a single image. Two children standing beside Amara. Two children who appeared to be around 7 years old. Two children who somehow recognized him from a photograph. That evening, after returning to his oceanfront residence overlooking the Pacific, Ethan stood alone beside the floor-to-ceiling windows in his study. Below him, city lights stretched across Los Angeles like scattered stars. Normally, the view helped him think. Tonight, it only made him restless. He replayed every second from the beach, every expression, every detail. Then he opened his laptop and pulled up an old folder he had not touched in years. Hundreds of photographs appeared on the screen. Most were from another life, another version of himself. There was Amara laughing at a food truck festival. Amara sitting on a rooftop wrapped in a blanket during a cool October evening. Amara holding a cup of coffee while sunlight streamed through a cafe window. Ethan stared at each image carefully. Then his attention shifted to something else. The little boy from the beach. The shape of his eyes. The angle of his smile. The way he tilted his head while speaking. Ethan closed his eyes. The similarities were becoming impossible to ignore. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Sophia stepped into the room carrying 2 cups of tea. She offered one to him before settling into a chair nearby. For a few moments, neither spoke. Finally, she broke the silence. "You have been distracted ever since we left the beach." Ethan remained facing the window. "I know." Sophia studied him carefully. Who was she? The question hung heavily between them. Ethan took a slow breath. "Someone I knew a long time ago." Sophia lowered her gaze briefly. "Just someone you knew?" Ethan did not answer immediately. His silence revealed more than words ever could. Sophia nodded slowly. "I thought so." The room grew quiet again. Outside, traffic moved through the city far below. Somewhere in the distance, a siren echoed faintly before disappearing into the night. Then Sophia spoke again. "The children." Ethan turned toward her. "What about them? Did you notice it too?" she asked softly. His chest tightened. "Notice what?" Sophia hesitated before speaking. "The boy." Ethan felt his stomach drop. "What about him?" Sophia met his eyes. "He looks like you." The words landed with unsettling force because they confirmed what Ethan had been trying to dismiss all evening. It was not just his imagination. Someone else had seen it too. Sophia looked away toward the city lights. "Maybe it means nothing," she said quietly. "Maybe it is just a coincidence." But neither of them sounded convinced. Later that night, long after Sophia had gone home, Ethan found himself staring at one particular photograph. It had been taken nearly 9 years earlier. He and Amara were sitting together on a beach remarkably similar to the one they had visited that afternoon. Both were smiling. Both looked hopeful. On the back of the photograph, written in Amara's handwriting, were 4 simple words. "Someday we will return." Ethan stared at the message for a long time. Then his phone suddenly vibrated on the desk. A new email had arrived. The sender's name caused his heart to stop. Amara Brooks. For several seconds, Ethan simply stared at the screen. The email contained only a single sentence. "We need to talk." Beneath the message was a location, a small cafe overlooking the marina less than 15 minutes from his residence, and a time. 10 o'clock the next morning. Nothing else. No explanation. No greeting. No signature. Yet none was necessary. He recognized her voice even through a few simple words. Sleep never came that night. Ethan spent hours sitting alone in his study, watching darkness slowly give way to dawn. Every question he had buried for 8 years seemed to return at once. Why had she contacted him now? Why had she waited so long? And most importantly, who were the children? By 9:45 the next morning, he was already seated at a corner table facing the harbor. Fishing boats rocked gently in the water while seabirds drifted overhead beneath clear California skies. The cafe was quiet except for the soft sound of coffee cups and distant conversations. At exactly 10 o'clock, Amara appeared. Ethan recognized her immediately. Time had changed certain things, but not the qualities that made her unforgettable. She carried herself with the same quiet confidence he remembered, the same calm presence, the same dignity. For a moment, neither spoke. 8 years of unanswered questions sat between them. Finally, Amara took a seat across from him. "You look well," she said softly. Ethan managed a faint smile. "So do you." Silence followed. The kind of silence that comes when 2 people are standing in the shadow of a history neither fully understands anymore. Ethan glanced toward the empty chair beside her. The children are not here. Amara shook her head. No. He nodded slowly. His heart was beating faster than he cared to admit. Amara, yesterday at the beach. His voice trailed off. She already knew what he wanted to ask. Her expression softened slightly. Noah should not have said that. Ethan leaned forward. The photograph. Amara looked out toward the marina for several seconds before answering. They found it years ago. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. Why do they have a photograph of me? Another long silence followed. Amara folded her hands together on the table. Because they asked about their father. The world seemed to narrow around Ethan. The sounds of the cafe faded. Even the ocean beyond the windows felt distant. Their father, he repeated quietly. Amara nodded. Ethan searched her face, looking for certainty, looking for doubt, looking for anything that might tell him he had misunderstood. But there was none. Only truth. His throat tightened. Amara. She met his eyes. I never told them your name. Ethan could barely breathe. Then why do they recognize me? A sad smile appeared on her face. Because Noah has your eyes. Because Nia has your smile. And because every year they asked questions I could not fully answer. Ethan sat completely still. Across the harbor, sunlight reflected across the water like scattered pieces of glass. For years he had imagined countless explanations for Amara's disappearance. None of them had prepared him for this moment. Then Amara reached into her purse and carefully removed a worn manila folder. She placed it gently on the table between them. Ethan looked down at it. His stomach dropped. Because written across the front was a date. A date from more than 8 years ago. A date only a few weeks after the day Amara had vanished from his life. Ethan stared at the date printed on the folder. His hands felt unusually heavy as he reached forward and opened it. Inside were neatly organized documents, medical records, appointment confirmations, and handwritten notes that had clearly been preserved for years. The first page immediately caught his attention. It was a prenatal appointment record dated just 23 days after Amara had left. Ethan's eyes moved slowly across the page. Then he saw the words, twin pregnancy. The air seemed to leave his lungs. He read the line again, then a third time, yet the words never changed. Across the table, Amara remained silent, allowing him to absorb the truth at his own pace. Ethan turned another page, then another. Every document carried dates from the same period. Every page told the same story. While he had spent years believing Amara simply walked away, she had been facing a reality that would change her life forever. You found out after you left? Ethan said quietly. Amara nodded. 2 weeks later. Ethan lowered his eyes. 1,000 thoughts collided inside his mind. Why did you never tell me? The question came out softer than he intended. Not angry, not accusing, just hurt. Amara looked down at her hands before answering. I tried. Ethan frowned slightly. What do you mean? She took a slow breath. I called. Ethan's head lifted immediately. You never called me. I did. Her voice remained calm. More than once. Ethan felt confusion spread through him. I never received anything. Amara reached into the folder and removed several folded papers. They were worn from age, carefully preserved. She handed them to him. Ethan unfolded the first page. It was a letter. His name appeared at the top in Amara's handwriting. He immediately recognized it. As he read the opening lines, a strange feeling settled over him. He had never seen this letter before. Not once. There were others beneath it. 3 letters in total, each written weeks apart, each addressed to him. In the first, Amara explained her pregnancy. In the second, she expressed uncertainty and fear about raising twins alone. In the third, she wrote about waiting for a response that never came. Ethan slowly lowered the pages. His heartbeat had become unsteady. I never received these. Amara studied him carefully. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. You are saying that honestly? Ethan looked directly at her. I swear to you. The marina outside seemed unusually quiet. Even the distant sounds of boats and conversations faded into the background. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Amara reached into the folder one final time. This time she removed something much smaller. A photograph. Ethan accepted it carefully. The image showed Noah and Nia as toddlers sitting together on a living room floor surrounded by toys. Both were smiling at the camera. On the back, written in blue ink, were simple words. For Dad. Ethan stared at the message. The date beneath it revealed the children had been barely 3 years old when it was written. His chest tightened. They made this for me. Amara nodded. Every year they asked questions. Ethan could not take his eyes off the photograph. 7 years of birthdays. 7 years of first days at school. 7 years of memories. Entire chapters of 2 young lives had passed without him. Then another realization struck him. If he had never received the letters, and if Amara truly believed he had ignored them, then someone had prevented the truth from reaching both of them. And for the first time, Ethan began to suspect that their separation had not happened the way either of them had believed. The meeting ended shortly before noon, but Ethan remained seated at the marina long after Amara left. The folder rested on the table in front of him, its contents transforming everything he thought he knew about the past. For 8 years he had carried resentment, disappointment, and regret. Now those emotions were being replaced by something else entirely. Questions. By the time he returned to his office in downtown Los Angeles, he had already made a decision. He needed answers, not assumptions, not memories, facts. Ethan spent the afternoon reviewing old records that had not been touched in years. Storage boxes were delivered from archives. Emails were recovered. Calendars were opened. Names he had not thought about in nearly a decade resurfaced one by one. Then he found something strange. During the months surrounding Amara's disappearance, nearly all of his personal correspondence had been filtered through a senior executive assistant named Victor Hale. At the time, Ethan had trusted Victor completely. The man had managed schedules, handled communications, and controlled access to meetings during one of the busiest periods of Ethan's career. Back then, Ethan never questioned it. But now small details began to stand out. Several missing emails, unexplained calendar changes, phone messages that had never been delivered. The deeper Ethan looked, the more uncomfortable he became. Near sunset, he requested an immediate meeting with Victor, who had retired 3 years earlier and now lived in Orange County. To Ethan's surprise, Victor agreed to meet that same evening. The retired executive arrived carrying the confidence of a man expecting a routine conversation. That confidence disappeared the moment Ethan placed the letters from Amara on the table between them. Victor stared at the papers. His face lost color. The room fell silent. Ethan watched carefully. "Do you recognize these?" he asked. Victor looked away. That was all the answer Ethan needed. Minutes later, the truth finally emerged. 8 years earlier, Victor had intercepted the letters. Every one of them. He admitted deleting messages, redirecting calls, and preventing communication between Ethan and Amara. Ethan listened in stunned silence. "Why?" he finally asked. Victor lowered his head. "Because I thought she would distract you." Ethan stared at him. Victor continued speaking. He explained that investors had been watching closely. Major business opportunities were approaching. He believed Ethan needed complete focus. A relationship, a family, and unexpected responsibilities would complicate everything. So Victor convinced himself he was protecting Ethan's future, protecting the company, protecting the success he believed Ethan deserved. The explanation landed like a weight in the room. Years of separation, years of misunderstanding, years of loneliness, all because one man decided he knew what was best for someone else's life. Ethan said nothing for several moments. Then he looked through the office windows toward the city skyline, glowing beneath the evening sky. The success Victor had tried to protect suddenly felt insignificant compared to what had been lost. Noah, Nia, 7 years of birthdays, 7 years of stories, 7 years of moments he could never recover. As Victor quietly left the office, Ethan remained standing by the window. His phone rested in his hand. On the screen was a photograph of 2 smiling children he barely knew. For the first time since learning the truth, he allowed himself to ask the question he had been avoiding. If Noah and Nia were truly his children, would they even want him in their lives now? 3 days passed before Ethan saw the twins again. During those 72 hours, he spoke with Amara several times. The conversations were cautious at first, shaped by years of distance and unanswered questions. Neither tried to erase the past. Neither pretended the lost years had not happened. Instead, they focused on something more important: the children. On Saturday morning, Ethan drove to a public park near Santa Monica where Noah and Nia spent most weekends playing soccer and riding bicycles. The California sky was bright and cloudless. Families filled the walking paths. Children laughed near the playground. It was an ordinary morning. Yet Ethan felt more nervous than he had during any business negotiation in his life. As he approached the field, he immediately spotted them. Noah was chasing a soccer ball across the grass while Nia sat beneath a large oak tree, sketching in a notebook. Amara stood nearby watching both children with the quiet attentiveness of a mother who had spent years being their entire world. When the twins noticed Ethan walking toward them, their reactions were very different. Noah froze first. The soccer ball rolled past him unnoticed. Nia lowered her notebook slowly. Both children recognized him immediately. Ethan stopped several feet away, uncertain of what to say. For the first time in years, words failed him completely. Fortunately, Noah spoke first. "You are the man from the picture." Ethan nodded gently. "Yes." Noah glanced toward his mother, then back at Ethan. "Mom said you knew her a long time ago." Ethan looked at Amara. She gave a small, encouraging nod. He turned back toward the children. "I did." Silence settled between them. Then Nia asked the question that mattered most. "Are you our father?" Ethan felt his heart stop. The playground sounds faded into the distance. Even the breeze seemed to disappear. This was the moment he had imagined repeatedly since opening that folder at the marina. Yet nothing had prepared him for hearing the question spoken aloud. Ethan knelt slightly, so he would be closer to their eye level. "Yes," he answered honestly. "I am." Neither child reacted immediately. They simply stared at him, processing, thinking, trying to fit this new truth into the world they understood. Then Noah surprised everyone. "I knew it." Ethan blinked. "You did?" Noah nodded confidently. "Your eyes look like mine." Nia rolled her eyes. "That is not proof." "It is too proof," Noah argued. "Look at us." For the first time, Ethan laughed. A genuine laugh. The kind that escaped before he could stop it. Nia studied him carefully. "You laugh like me." Ethan smiled. "Maybe I do." The tension began to soften. Minutes later, they were sitting together beneath the oak tree. Noah asked dozens of questions. What was Ethan's favorite food? Did he play sports? Could he swim? Did he like dogs? Nia was quieter, more observant. She listened carefully before speaking. Eventually, she reached into her backpack and removed a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing, for figures standing together on a beach. A mother, 2 children, and a man. Ethan stared at it silently. "I drew it last year," Nia explained. "I did not know what you looked like, so I guessed." Ethan felt emotion rise unexpectedly in his chest. 7 years. 7 years of imagining, wondering, waiting. Yet somehow these children had still left a place for him inside their hearts. And as Noah continued talking and Nia carefully watched his reactions, Ethan realized something extraordinary. He had arrived fearing rejection. Instead, he was being given something he never expected to receive. A chance. 6 months later, the same stretch of coastline looked different. Not because the ocean had changed. Not because the waves rolled any differently onto the sand. It looked different because Ethan Romano was no longer the same man who had stood there that afternoon believing his future was already decided. The engagement had ended quietly. There had been no public drama, no bitter arguments, no headlines. Sophia had listened to the truth, and in the end, she had understood something Ethan himself had only recently learned. Some chapters are not meant to continue when another unfinished chapter still owns a piece of your heart. She wished him well and moved forward with grace. Now, as the late afternoon sun painted the Pacific in shades of gold, Ethan walked slowly across the beach carrying a cooler in one hand and a folding chair in the other. Ahead of him, Noah and Nia raced toward the shoreline, laughing as they competed to see who could reach the water first. "I won," Noah shouted. "You started running early." Nia immediately protested. Ethan smiled as their voices carried through the ocean breeze. Nearby, Amara spread a blanket across the sand and shook her head with amusement. "Some things never change." Ethan laughed softly. Apparently not. The months since their reunion had not erased the lost years. Nothing could do that. There were still moments of adjustment, still conversations about the past, still questions that surfaced unexpectedly. But something remarkable had happened. Instead of focusing on what had been taken from them, they had begun building something new. One memory at a time. One weekend at a time. One ordinary day at a time. Ethan attended soccer games now. He helped with school projects. He answered bedtime phone calls when Noah wanted help with math or when Nia wanted to share a new drawing. They were not grand gestures. They were small moments. The kind of moments he once would have overlooked. The kind that now meant everything. A sudden tug on his sleeve interrupted his thoughts. Nia stood beside him holding a sketchbook. "I finished it," she announced proudly. Ethan opened the sketchbook carefully. His eyes immediately softened. The drawing showed 4 figures standing together on a beach beneath a bright California sunset. A mother, a father, a boy, a girl. This time, the faces were detailed. This time, she did not have to guess. Ethan stared at the drawing for several seconds. Then he noticed a sentence written neatly at the bottom of the page. "Our family finally found its way home." Emotion tightened his throat. Beside him, Amara quietly read the words as well. Their eyes met. No dramatic speeches were necessary. No promises needed to be spoken. The years ahead would bring challenges, just as every family experiences. But they would face them together. The sun slowly descended toward the horizon as Noah chased seagulls across the sand and Nia added final details to her drawing. Amara stood beside Ethan, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Waves rolled gently onto the shore. Children laughed. The sky turned orange, then pink, then gold. And for the first time in 8 years, Ethan Romano stopped looking back at the life he thought he had lost. Instead, he looked at the people standing beside him and realized that sometimes the most precious things in life do not disappear forever. Sometimes they simply wait for the truth to find its way home.